Success! Oh, hi. Glad you're here. I'm glad to be with you. Today I'm going to talk about the most impactful films that I saw that were released in 2005. This was a big year for me. It was the year I got married. I married my soulmate, my best friend. It was more than I could have ever asked for. We got divorced 3 years and 11 months later, and to this day, after 23 years of knowing her, we're still best friends. Anyway, that has nothing to do with movies. It was just a big year. So we'll go through these movies. History of Violence. History of Violence is a great film starring Viggo Mortensen and Ed Harris. Great film. Has a great scene on stairs. If you know, you know. And I quote it quite often when referring to coffee. Whenever I'm referring to coffee, I either quote The Big Lebowski, I'm staying, I'm finishing my coffee, enjoying my coffee. Or I'll quote History of Violence. I said coffee! Great movie, if you haven't seen it. Great movie. Robots, the animated film, classic, starring Robin Williams and Ewan McGregor. Love that movie. I'll never forget seeing that movie in theaters. And then my favorite part was when he's at the train station airport place when he first gets to the big city, and there's the robot. I love it when you shake it right there, and the robot's doing the robot. That part cracks me the heck up every time. So robots, and then my wife, fiance, whatever it was at the time, we came up with a great idea. We should do shrooms and see this movie. This movie would be great on shrooms. Did we? I know we had the idea. Did we? I don't think we did. We just knew that it would be a great movie for shrooms. Not that I'm advocating the use of anything, but if I were, that would be something to do while on them. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a perfect film. I love that film. One of my favorite movies of all time. Definitely one of my favorite sci-fi films of all time. And this was when, to me, it was starring Jim from The Office. Was his name Jim in the OG? Anyway, the British Office that I was a big fan of before the American Office. I'm one of those people who watched the American Office because I was a fan of the British Office. Oh, and he was also in Ollie G. in the House. Great film. But Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Warwick Davis, I met him. Alan Rickman, Zoe Deschanel. I don't need to just list the people who were in it. Sam Rockwell. Sam Rockwell is like my favorite actor of all. Academy Award winning. Sam Rockwell is like my favorite actor of all time. I think Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is absolutely perfect. I'll never forget seeing it in the theater, and there's that one moment at the beginning when things are flying through space. At one point, a cell phone flies by the screen, and it makes that sound that some people might not get the reference right now. But as the cell phone goes by, it makes that... And it was this weird sound that our cell phones would make back then when they were near certain things like other speakers or screens or something like that. Our cell phones would give off this odd sound that sounded almost like Morse code. So it references that in that movie, although it's now dated because cell phones don't do that anymore. But back then they did, so that's why it makes that sound. Great movie, though. I could quote it left and right. Sam Rockwell is amazing in that film. I can't say that enough. It's just a great movie that I think was perfectly adapted. Perfectly adapted. Excellent film. Constantine, I'll mention. It's a good film. My wife and I loved it. And we were big fans of Shia LaBeouf. Still, always been a big fan of Shia LaBeouf. I love Shia LaBeouf. Big fan of Shia LaBeouf. And he was great in that movie, one of his first roles. And I'll never forget when one day, I think I was at work or something, and she called me up because we had it on DVD, and she was freaking out like, oh my gosh, there's an end credit scene to Constantine. I'm like, what? Spoiler alert, there's an end credit scene to Constantine. And it's Shia LaBeouf's Angel, I think? So now that they're making a sequel, I'm like, yay. But not the same without Shia. Kind of the way I feel about the new Indiana Jones. Don't get me started. Match Point, great Woody Allen film. One of my favorite Woody Allen films. Scarlett Johansson, fantastic story. I remember seeing that movie and just being blown away by the twists and turns. And that was back in my early days of discovering Woody Allen. There's only like a handful of Woody Allen films I can really get behind, but that's definitely one of them. Elektra I'm going to mention because my wife and I referenced in a past video that Daredevil, in my 2003 video, Daredevil, I'm a big fan of. Yes, Ben Affleck's Daredevil, I'm a big fan of. Come at me. So I was excited about Elektra being a spin-off, but I was mostly excited about Elektra because it was directed by the guy who directed the X-Files movie, Fight the Future. And I'm like, well, that movie is so brilliant. Why did I not talk about that movie? Some of these movies get overlooked. I look up movies, like popular movies released that year, and I try to jot down which would make my list. Some of them slip through the cracks. I don't think I talked about X-Files Fight the Future, but that was an amazing movie that bridged 2 seasons and blew my mind. My dad missed the end. Did I talk about that movie? I don't know. I'm not gonna... Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. Wouldn't that have been like 96 or something? Maybe I did. Who knows? Well, I mentioned it now. Anyway, so I was very excited because it was the same director, and that was a great movie. And then Elektra was not great at all, I don't think. I did not enjoy that film. So I was like, oh, bummer. Daredevil was awesome. X-Files was awesome. Elektra? Not so much. The Island. The Island is one of, let me think, maybe, definitely one of, if not, my favorite Michael Bay film. I say that as if I'm a Michael Bay fan. I'm not. I have enjoyed most of his films. It wasn't until recent memory that he just kind of got written off in my mind, but The Island is probably his best film. You've got Scarlett Johansson and Ewan McGregor at their best with a great story, compelling, great action, great visual effect. Like, I love The Island. I need to watch that. The Island is an amazing film about clones that are grown in case their original needs new organs. Michael Clark Duncan, rest in peace, I swear. That movie blew my mind. But it's also something that I quote on a regular basis. I learned a new word today. Dude. Dude. Yeah, dude. D-O-O-D. Dude. Dude. Great movie. About, like, the life of a clone living in seclusion with other clones not knowing that they're clones. Or something. Great movie. Ewan McGregor as 2 separate characters. Not his last time doing that, Fargo. Is great. Ewan McGregor is amazing, and he's especially great when he plays 2 different characters, especially when those 2 different characters are the same character, but not really the same character. You got a clone and a regular in this one, and then of course in Fargo he's playing twin brothers. Anyway, The Island, fantastic. Oh, and my wife and I would always joke about, that's when we really discovered, because I knew Scarlett Johansson, and I loved Scarlett Johansson, and I mentioned her CD in a previous video. Yes, Scarlett Johansson has a music CD of only Tom Waits covers. It's amazing. But, as I mentioned there, The Island is kind of where my wife and I would acknowledge and joke about her raspy voice. Lincoln! She does have a more raspy voice in a very positive way. I love Scarlett Johansson's voice. She has a beautiful singing voice. But it's just, yeah, she has a more voice. But, yeah, she's pretty. Harry Potter 4? What? Oh, The Goblet of Fire. I have to mention Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. I will never forget. As I mentioned in the previous video, the first 2 Harry Potters, I was like, meh. And then the trailer for the 3rd Harry Potter got me to go see that one in the theater. And I was like, you know what? That was pretty darn good. I think I might stick around for the next one. And then I went with my wife to see Goblet of Fire in theaters. And core memory. I remember getting home to the apartment and just flipping out and going crazy about how much I loved not just the movie, but specifically the ending. Goblet of Fire is what. Prisoner of Azkaban made me like Harry Potter. Goblet of Fire made me a serious, hardcore Harry Potter fan. That's when I was on board, thrilled, couldn't wait for the next one. Specifically because of the ending and the graveyard scene that I quote all the time. Kill the spare! Havana Kedavra! Like, that scene in the graveyard where they actually have, spoiler alert, the return of Voldemort and the abuse of a child. I had a t-shirt that was literally just Voldemort's face when he's like, I can touch you now! And he has his snake tongue sticking out. Ralph Fiennes, one of the best castings ever. He was absolutely phenomenal as Lord Voldemort. But to see the introduction of Lord Voldemort in that way, in such a hardcore child abuse, murdering Mr. Twilight, aka Batman, it was like, that scene got me so excited and immediately made Voldemort my favorite character in the Harry Potter franchise. And that graveyard scene, the introduction of Voldemort at the end of Goblet of Fire, is by far my favorite scene in the entire series. And Goblet of Fire. My arm is on fire. Goblet of Fire is my favorite Harry Potter film. Always was, always will be. The Triwizard Tournament, Goblet of Fire is the best. I love a very down ending where the bad guy really gets to sink his teeth into how vicious he is. Oh, the other arm, Wormtail. Oh. So yeah, that's my favorite Harry Potter film. But it's also the film responsible for making me a Potterhead. As, my son's a Hufflepuff. Sin City. I mean, you've seen Sin City, right? So you know how amazing it is. You haven't seen Sin City? What's wrong with you? You need to watch Sin City. Sin City is an amazing, brilliant masterpiece. The greatest adaptation of comic page to film. Maybe tied with Watchmen. Like, Watchmen, I would say, is the greatest adaptation of a graphic novel, as to where Sin City, also being that, is also did it to where this is what the panel looked like. We just put it on screen and added a little motion to it. But I had never read it. I just was blown away by, I was a fan of the director. I was a fan of the cast. Mickey Rourke. I'd never seen anything like it, and it blew me away in the theater. I believe I saw it with my brother first, and then insisted I take my father. And my father did not know what he was in for. I'm always blown away. I believe I referenced this when I was talking about Terminator 3 Rise of the Machines. The actor who played John Connor in that film, of course, plays that yellow bastard in Sin City. Oh, and Elijah Wood. Oh, Sin City. Like, A Dame to Kill For is great, too. I love A Dame to Kill For. But the first Sin City, absolutely phenomenal. As perfection of filmmaking. Bruce Willis, Michael Madsen. I can, again, just list cast members, but I don't need to. Google it. Sin City is an amazing, perfectly crafted film that I absolutely love. Watched numerous times in the theaters. Have vivid memories of seeing it with my brother, with my father, and I love it. Ooh, and the pretty lady who plays Mickey Rourke, the lady who plays Rourke's therapist. There's nudity in the film. She's pretty. She has perfect body parts. Yeah, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to go there. I love boobies. Who doesn't love boobies? She has great boobies. I'm a fan of that actress. I was a fan of hers since then. Oh, and then she was in Watchmen as the OG Silk Spectre. There you go. King Kong. Peter Jackson's King Kong is a very underrated film. It is like a trilogy in one. Is it long? Yeah. Is it worth it? Yeah. You get a movie about the film world back then, and Jack Black's phenomenal in this, by the way. And then it turns into a movie on a boat. Andy Serkis is amazing in this, by the way. Not just as the captain, but he played King Kong. And then you get a whole nother movie on this island with bugs and dinosaurs and fighting and jaw cracking. And then you get another movie in New York City in the 30s, right? With a monkey running around, dancing with the pretty lady on the ice, and then climbing deals and throwing cars, and absolutely, I think it's a perfect adaptation of that story. The director's cut, I especially would recommend and thoroughly enjoy. And yeah, Naomi Watts, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And it's absolutely phenomenal. On top, it's just this epic. I love that King Kong. It doesn't get enough credit. With the dinosaurs, it might have been in 3D. I might have seen it in 3D. I'm not really. But I also remember, I got to mention, because most people aren't aware of this. Depending on who you ask, my ex-wife always argues with me about it. Was it an Easter egg on King Kong, or was it an Easter egg on Lord of the Rings? I do believe, I'm pretty sure, it's an Easter egg on one of the original extended editions of the Lord of the Rings DVDs. Where if you find it, it's clear that while they're making the bonus features, Peter Jackson's getting ready to make King Kong, because it's what he did after Lord of the Rings. I don't think it was in between, whenever it was, who cares? And, oh, it was definitely after, because Lord of the Rings was 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, so this is right after Lord of the Rings. But it's a bonus feature, because then those extended edition DVDs of Lord of the Rings came out like a year after the OG DVD and the movie. So one of the bonus features, it must have been probably Return of the King. There's a hidden Easter egg, and it's Jack Black coming out of his trailer saying that he came up with a theme song. Was the theme song for King Kong, or was it for Lord of the Rings? It was for King Kong, or maybe it was for Lord of the Rings, and it was just clearly like a little snippet while they were filming King Kong, but then they put it on Lord of the Rings. And I've had that song stuck in my head for 18 years. And it was hilarious, because it's Jack Black. We all know. Of course, I'm talking today when everybody's going nuts about his Peaches song in frickin' Super Mario Brothers. But this was just him off the cuff, improvising on the set of King Kong and saying, hey, Peter, I just came up with a theme song. A roodly doodly 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 roodly doodly doodly didn't do. Just like that. A roodly doodly 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 roodly doodly doodly didn't do. Try not to get that stuck in your head. You're welcome. A roodly doodly 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 roodly doodly doodly didn't do. Roodly doodly. You get the idea. That's exactly how it went verbatim, and I haven't seen that thing in 15 years. Look it up. It's probably on YouTube now. You can find anything. Look up Jack Black singing Roodly Doodly on the set of King Kong on the Lord of the Rings Easter egg DVD. And correct me if I'm wrong, and then I'll give credit to my ex-wife, but I'm pretty sure those facts are accurate. Obviously, it being 2005, I would have to mention Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. What? That's not my number one most impactful film of 2005? That's insanity, because it should be, and it would be. That's my favorite all-time Star Wars film. I'll never forget seeing it in theaters with my wife at the time. May. Fiance at the time. It would have been a couple of months before we got married. And we loved it. That's still, to this day, both of ours, mine, a lot of people's, oh, I guess I almost said most. A lot of people's favorite Star Wars film. Most people, it's Empire Strikes Back. I love the prequels. I love every Star Wars movie. Yeah, that's weird, right? I'm such a Star Wars fan that I like all of Star Wars. I like episode 1, I like episode 2, I like episode 3. Episode 4 is really boring, but I like it. Episode 5 is extremely overrated, but I like it. Episode 6 is the best of the OGs, if you ask me, and I love it. Episode 7, great film. Episode 8, the best Star Wars film we will ever see. Episode 9, an amazing, perfect Star Wars film that was a beautiful conclusion to the saga. Yeah, I said it. Come at me, bro. But episode 3, 2005, seeing that in theaters, what a treat. What a treat. Oh my gosh. Obviously, Ian McDiarmid is like the best. And Palpatine is my favorite fictional character of all time. So obviously this is my favorite because Palpatine wins, spoiler alert. Palpatine rules the galaxy and they wipe out those horrid, disgusting Jedi. Yeah, I'm a Sith, and the Jedi are despicable things. The whole point of this prequel trilogy was the Jedi are pieces of garbage, here's why, and we need to get rid of them. Which is true. They're religious cultists who kidnap children against their parents' will just because they have a gift, and then they brainwash them and grow them and tell them they're no longer allowed to see their family ever again. It's ironic. Very similar to a situation I'm currently going through. But anywho, Order 66, that never gets old. And of course, the tale of Darth Plagueis the Wise. I know it's not canon anymore, but the book by James Luceno, whatever the heck his name is, the book Darth Plagueis, one of my favorite Star Wars books of all time. One of my favorite books of all time, but definitely my favorite Star Wars book. And it's literally it's about Darth Plagueis, but it's really about Palpatine. And it covers Plagueis, but it also covers how Plagueis met Palpatine. When Palpatine was young, he used the Force and murdered his family. Oh, it's great. And then it goes through, the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise and how his apprentice killed him in his sleep. But what you don't know is all of these events line up. You get in the book, and eventually it's during episode 1. Like, Darth Plagueis was alive and still Sidious's master during episode 1. He was in the shadows while they're having conversations with Darth Maul and talking to the Neimoidians. And it was like while Palpatine was practicing his acceptance speech for Supreme Chancellor, that him, and because it was Plagueis' plan all along to overtake the Senate and eventually trick the Jedi and take over the galaxy. It was Plagueis' plan, and then Palpatine kind of executed it for him, and when they were celebrating that their plan was working as planned, they were drinking, and Plagueis had a little too much to drink. And it was the one and only time, he let his guard down, drank more than he knew he should have, and actually fell asleep in front of his apprentice. It's something he normally didn't do in general, much less with anyone else around. And his apprentice killed him in his sleep. But those things happened during episode 1. Great book. If you're a Star Wars fan, if you're a Revenge of the Sith fan, if you're a Tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise fan, or a Palpatine fan, or a prequel fan, or a Star Wars fan, you should read Darth Plagueis. Great book. Or listen to it, I guess, is what people do now. Anyway, so yeah, that would have been number 1. But the movie that is the most impactful film of 2005 for me is War of the Worlds. Steven Spielberg's masterpiece that he envisioned as a ride and turned into a movie, but the movie is very much so like a ride. I'm not the biggest fan of Tom Cruise, but boy am I a fan of a lot of his performances, roles, and characters. It cracks me up in this when he's doing the whole, oh, it's just like fireworks. Oh, say can you. Oh, he's gonna, right. He's fantastic. Or the running scene after the thing comes out of the street and he's got exploding people in his face, covered in ashes. That whole sequence is absolutely phenomenal. It's just a great film, period. And I've always loved the story of War of the Worlds, and then the aliens were defeated by the teeniest, tiniest little virus on the. I love that movie. It was insane in theaters, especially like when they're trapped in the basement and there's that crap going on outside, which you're like, oh no, aliens! And then turns out it was a plane crash right on that house they were staying. Anyway. But, having said all of that, the reason why it takes the number one spot is War of the Worlds came out the last week of June. I got married on July 1st. I actually convinced her to get married on July 1st because it's Canada Day. I'm Canadian. And I wanted a Canada-themed wedding, which she went along with, which was awesome. Red and white, 99 oof balloons. We're not here to talk about my wedding. But the reason this is the number one film is because after it was out for about a week, I was with my best man, Matt, creator of Madness, the animated films on YouTube, and now a video game and yada yada yada. Yeah, I was there when he created Madness. I was in his basement. I was the first one to see the first video and the second video and the third. Yeah. My best man at my wedding, my best friend, was Matt, creator of Madness. You know, with the clown. And the hands not attached to the little body. And the cross face guy. Yeah, I was there for the creation of that. But anyway, he was my best man because I'd known him longer than any of my friends at the time. Yeah, and then I had my groomsmen and whatnot. But anyway, so him and I went to see War of the Worlds because I wanted to see it, and it was all we could think of to do while, you know, the tradition of you don't see the bride the night before until the wedding, and you go, oh. Yeah, you guessed it. War of the Worlds was my bachelor party. And I'm not complaining. I wouldn't have had it any other way. Didn't have a bunch of friends. Nobody, best man, I guess that was supposed to be his job. Nobody put together a party. No strippers. We just went to a movie. The day before I got married, I saw War of the Worlds. If only I would have known that witnessing the destruction, the next day I would destroy my life by getting married. Like I said, I'm still best friends with my ex-wife. It wasn't all peaches and roses, though. It was a rough divorce there for a minute, but it was a rough relationship. Hell, the relationship was probably worse than the rest. We're much better as friends, but yeah, War of the Worlds was my bachelor party. And then my world ended. No, I'm kidding. Great movie, though. Great movie. So, yeah, there you go. That's 2005. The year I gave myself future ex-wife jokes. Okie dokie.